Harman's here, but I'm going to continue telling the story. And we were just frozen on Faber's screen for a good minute and a half. And I started talking. It was just frozen on you reacting. And then Alex came back in the nick of time, saved the day, like he did this time as well. Harman Dayal from The Athletic joins us. Harman, how you doing today?
Doing great, guys. How are you? How legs keeping up there, Faber?
Oh man, I am sore today. I tell you that. It was the back. It's all the crouching and the back and forth and getting in and out of the kitchen as some of the pickleball termage that we verbiage that we learned yesterday. I had a good time. We got the video up here right now. Harm, you looking good. How did you feel from start to finish there on the old pickleball courts?
Well, it's funny because on the car ride there, I was warning you that from my experience picking up badminton in the summer, you think that going into these drop-in community center games that were some of the youngest guys there, and you think you're going to be athletic and pick it up right away, especially because we've both played sports in the past and we pick things up pretty easy. And then you quickly just realize that, oh no, it's not really about athleticism at all. It's about pattern recognition and all these things. And I remember in the community center with badminton getting dusted really early. So despite that, in pickleball, it's funny because in the second game, we felt confident enough to play with each other and then got dusted 11-2 by those older women in their 50s. But no, by the end of it, I felt a lot more comfortable. It, again, just felt like something that you need anticipation for, and you can't just rely on your raw athleticism. So
Before we get to the Canucks here, I also thought it was funny on the drive back when I was driving Harm home. Harm, you're bringing up like the analytics behind serving first and serving second in the game on the way in. You're like, yeah, but I think like a 55% chance if you're serving first,
well,
you get
yeah,
a couple
because
points ahead.
okay, because listen, I was thinking like it's arbitrary in terms of who starts with the serve. And you can only, in pickleball, it's not like badminton where you can pick up points when you're receiving. You can only get points when you're serving. So Faber gives up. We had the ball. He gave up the serve to the other ladies. I'm like, Faber, dude, what are you doing? And they racked up like 4 or 5 points. It was 4 or 5 nothing before we even got the serve back. I was like, that right there, like duked our chances.
That's a rookie mistake. And Harman and I haven't talked about this. I mean, I don't even think I told you. Harman and I had a pretty good table tennis match in Edmonton.
Oh yeah, we did.
It was a really good game. We played like 5 games. I think it was best of 3. And I'll tell you what, Toronto Maple Leafs did. I had a 2-game lead on Harman out of nowhere. And I didn't even know I could play ping pong, to be honest with you. But it was fun. We had a lot of fun. And then I had a 2-game lead. And then we stopped having fun because Harman came back. And Faber holds up his pickleball racket. Harman came back. You know, I like I said, I Leafsed it. So you know what happened next. Harman came back, won 3 straight games. I'd never seen anything like it.
Unbelievable.
First round exit.
Oh, tough. All right, let's get to the Vancouver Canucks a little bit, Harm. We'll get started with some of the lineup decisions today. We've talked about it a lot. I don't think we probably even talked about it last time you were on with us, but it looks like Riley Stillman's going to stay back in the lineup with Tyler Myers again today. Also, Vasily Podkolzin heading in instead of Niels Höglander. Where do you take as the biggest takeaway here from what we're going to see in the lineup tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights? And what one change would you make if you could make one?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one change that we'd all be in agreement on that we've mentioned in the past is the decision to have Stillman in the lineup, period. I mean, even in what was the last game where he tried to set, it was sort of at the end of the period and he tried to clear the puck right up the middle and it led to a scoring chance against, I think it was that Kings game actually. Yeah. And it was just like in that moment, I think it said a lot about, I mean, not that one play is going to be illustrative of a player's entire toolkit, but I think it was a reminder that Stillman just can't make plays with the puck. He doesn't have, and it's not just being able to handle it and having the stick handling ability, but the decision making and the game awareness where you have the puck behind the net. There's like 2 seconds left. Just rim it around the boards in that instance, right? You have to have, if you're a defenseman, physical sort of guy, you got to have at least one of the two in terms of puck handling or smart decision making. You can't have both. Otherwise, you just can't be trusted. And that's where Stillman, even without the puck, you see sometimes with his defensive reads, especially below the hash marks, that he's out of position sometimes. I think back to, for example, even the Minnesota game where, ironically, he and Burrows were playing on a pair together, and he kind of Burrows was kind of already in the corner, and he also went in there, and they left the net front guy wide open. So it feels like Boudreaux just has Burrows in his mind kind of pigeonholed as a number 7 guy. for whatever reason, despite how well he's played. So that's, I think, one change in terms of the forward group. And I think this has a bigger long-term impact is I think it's going to be fascinating to see how the Canucks manage Podkolzin and Höglander for the rest of the season, because I think to this point it's kind of been, at least lately, with both of them kind of struggling to hit the score sheet. You can see that they're kind of rotating in and out of the press box. I think in Podkolzin's case, he's played really well, and it's a case of, in the last few games he maybe hasn't had his confidence, but I think he's been due for better luck. With Höglander, it's interesting though, because I think he's almost at a point now where I've been wondering if he's just going to be in and out of the press box and playing in the bottom six and kind of pigeonholed into playing this energy line sort of role, which, don't get me wrong, he showed a lot of positive things in that capacity. I wonder if at what point you start considering sending him down to Abbotsford and putting him in a position where he can play top minutes, grow his game offensively, because again, I like a lot of his work on the forecheck. I like how he's using his speed to make little plays, win little battles, make plays on the defensive half wall to lead clean exits up the ice. But I'm not seeing the same dynamic offensive traits, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily because he's playing with less talented line mates, maybe, even though he's still been on that line with Brock Besser. I don't know if it's a confidence thing, if he feels that he's now in a role where he's worried about if I make a mistake, I'm going to be back in the press box. I don't know what it is, but it feels like he's lost a little bit of his offensive spark. And moving forward, I know he has legit middle six potential, so I want him back in that offensive mindset, and I wonder at what point could he be potentially better served down in Abbotsford.
Another guy that we haven't necessarily talked about, it feels like lately he just hasn't been talked about a lot, is Jack Rathbone. Like, he had that rough game and he came out and nobody really said anything about it after that. Rathbone's sitting in the press box right now. Like, what do you make of that, and what should the Canucks do with this guy?
It's tough because he simply doesn't look NHL ready. To be honest, whenever he's factored into the lineup, for starters, context is important, where he was kind of thrown into a tough scenario when he first got into the lineup, where he hadn't played for a really long time, and all of a sudden he was airdropped in for the home opener at a time where the Canucks still hadn't gotten a win, and the crowd was obviously really antsy and on edge, and being deployed into that role, especially that deep into the season, where you know that the coach doesn't have a lot of faith in you. I can imagine that it's not an ideal headspace to be in as a player, especially when you haven't, again, played since preseason. So I can understand why he struggled initially, but even when he drew back in, he's had issues managing the puck. His passes have been off the mark. This is a guy who needs to be able to transition well and be solid on defensive zone exits to make a legit NHL impact. And we just haven't seen it so far. It just feels like he's not able to find his forwards as sticks on a consistent enough basis when he is trying to make plays. And when you don't have that, and you compound that with some of the mistakes that he's made defensively, for example, in the game against I think, was it Ottawa or Montreal, where I think it was Montreal maybe, where I think it was Montreal, where he fumbled the puck at the offensive blue line, and the Habs counterattacked and scored. Those plays sort of add up, and I can't say that he's deserved an opportunity to be in the NHL lineup. But in having said that, he hasn't played for a long time either, and considering the fact that he is on a one-way contract, so he's going to make the same amount of money whether he's in the NHL or the AHL, I would really consider sending him down to Abbotsford at some point, and at least getting him some minutes, allow him to build his confidence back up. Because if he was on a two-way contract, I think you'd look at that situation and say, you're going to piss the guy off by, him having to take such a significant pay cut by going down. But it's on a one-way deal. He's not going to be making any less money. So at some point, you just got to give him game reps, especially because ever since signing, he's barely played professional games, period. Whether it's been the 2021 campaign, where we had taxi squads and the AHL season was delayed. Even last season, when he came to, I think, getting COVID, injuries, starting last season in Vancouver as a similar sort of situation as last season, he just hasn't played a lot, and he hasn't gotten a lot of game reps in. So, I mean, I'm at the point now where I don't have a ton of faith, truthfully, in terms of his potential NHL upside. But all you can do, I think, at this point is, you've got to let him play as opposed to just rot it, at least in the American League, as opposed to just kind of sitting and doing nothing in the press box.
Absolutely. I think to get back to the lineup a little bit, I wanted to ask, like, so you look at the fourth line. I think a lot of people have liked the fourth line, and then I'm talking about Dakota Joshua playing alongside Neil Zaman and Curtis Lazar. I think that trio has looked good. They were also together at training camp. It's been a line that Bruce Boudreau likes to go with, but because of that being your fourth line, we are seeing Sheldon Dries play a third line center role right now with some more talented players, like whether it be a Niels Höglander, Vasily Podkolzin, and seems like Brock Besser's the one who's sticking there. Would you make adjustments to that fourth line to maybe give a little bit more firepower? Like, is Curtis Lazar moving up to play 3C an idea? Is Dakota Joshua, like, he's played some center. He's been pretty good at being a playmaker, I think, in his fourth line role. Is there something you might want to mix up there with Sheldon Dries, or is he your best bet right now at 3C?
It is something that I've been wondering about. I think I wouldn't mind giving Lazar a couple more games just to really. I know he looked great in coming back to the lineup last game, but give him a couple more games to get his feet under him. Then at that point, I do think I would consider potentially shifting him up the lineup, especially because when I look at the current mix, even when it comes to the top line, for example, Horvat, Miller, and Garland, that line's played well in general, and they've created a lot of zone time. And I think Horvat and Miller work really well as north-south players. I just don't quite see the fit with Connor Garland yet. I know there's been flashes where he's been able to work in that spot, but it feels like there's been a lot of situations where that line will create some type of offensive possession, but Garland's maybe fumbling pucks along the walls or behind the net, and he just hasn't been able to make, I think, a consistent impact. I just don't see chemistry with Garland with those two guys yet. Horvat and Miller have been good enough to this point that it hasn't mattered, but I even wonder about that trio. I mean, you can obviously keep them together just because the team's been winning for now, and I think that's the argument for keeping things intact for now is I completely understand letting things stay the way they are, but maybe in a couple of games, if you've lost a game here or there, I think you've got to rethink, even if it's that role. I mean, I think about Höglander. We just spoke about what do you do with him as one last shot. I wouldn't mind giving him a run on that top line with Horvat and Miller in that spot, just because the one center that Höglander's actually had success with in his NHL career is Bo Horvat. That was the trio that worked really well with Horvat, Pearson, and Höglander in his rookie season. And I just haven't seen Höglander fit that well with any other center to this point. So if there's one last shot you want to make for getting Höglander back on track before you consider using him in a different spot, I'd consider maybe him in the Garland sort of role. And even with then Garland maybe figuring out a spot further down the lineup a little bit. Maybe it reinforces your third line. It feels like we're still one or two moves away. And with Sheldon Dries specifically, he's had his fair share of chances, but that line I think has struggled defensively. So I don't think we've quite found the right top nine fit yet. But I think we're just going to have to stick with the status quo as long as the team's winning.
Yep. I think I'm with you on that one. Harm, appreciate you joining us here, and stay out of the kitchen, bud. Appreciate it.
Will do. Thanks, boys.
There he is. Harman Dayal joining us there.